Buongiorno, prego, prego. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Allora voglio...
Good morning. I would like to greet and thank President and Secretary General and all representatives of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, the Undersecretary to the Ministry of the Interior, all colleagues that are here today and authorities, as well as speakers, of course. I would like to thank the Vice President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, MP Eugenio Zoffili, for promoting this initiative, which is indeed pivotal from an institutional standpoint. The Chamber of Deputies is pleased to host the second interparlamentary conference on the fight against organized crime in the OSCE region. This is indeed an opportunity to reflect on the scourge of drug trafficking and the effects of narcotics on millions of lives. Drug use is a cause for great concern. The consequences affect both drug users and their families, since the latter are forced to bear the painful burden of hardship and suffering. Drug trafficking jeopardizes security and fuels a widespread and dangerous criminal network, while the misuse of new technologies contributes to facilitating it. In an increasingly digitalized and interconnected world, drug dealers can exploit the anonymity of the internet to operate with greater freedom, thereby circumventing controls and dodging investigations. Also, drug trafficking generates a massive turnover to the detriment of the most vulnerable. The lure of drugs knows no borders, I'm afraid, and knows no limits. And this is made even more treacherous by the constant search for new combinations of dreadful substances that can negatively impact health, such as synthetic drugs. In this very complex situation, no country can succeed on its own. This is a global challenge that requires a shared and coordinated approach. Institutions must first and foremost focus on young people and adolescents so as to prevent this enemy from infiltrating their lives and jeopardizing their future growth. To protect those suffering from pathological addictions and conditions, we must ensure health and psychological support to enable them to be taken on board on appropriate recovery pathways. We must therefore proceed with steadfast determination to dismantle criminal networks, which often have ramifications and branches across multiple countries. Against this backdrop, parliamentary diplomacy is of the essence for cross-border cooperation. However, the fight against organized crime also depends on our ability to strengthen a mindset of legality in every sphere of life. Behind every number and every statistics, there are human faces, human stories, and hardships we can no longer ignore. In the institutions' efforts to combat and prevent crime, our focus must remain on these people, since they embody our future. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful continuation of this conference.
Grazie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, honorable colleagues, friends, distinguished delegates, dear guests, I would first like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the President of the Chamber of Deputies, our President, Lorenzo Fontana, for his presence which lends a very special value to the proceedings of this conference and demonstrates the attention as well as deep commitment of our institutions to the crucial issue of fighting against drugs and organized crime. It is with deep emotion and sincere pride that I join President Fontana in welcoming you to the Chamber of Deputies, to Italy and to Rome. It is a great pleasure to see so many colleagues and friends in the audience. Thank you for being here. As Vice President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and head of the Italian delegation, which I greet, it is an honor for me to welcome you here to this hall, the Queen's Hall at Palazzo Montecitorio. We are delighted to host this extremely important conference here in Italy, where over the years we have developed a series of best practices that have yielded excellent results in the fight against organized crime, including its main source of funding, namely drug trafficking. We are honored to share and compare Italy's experiences with those of the other 56 member states. Overall, there are 57 member states, as well as 11 partners of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. It is a chance to put into practice the international cooperation that underpins our organization, and it represents the only possible way to win this crucial battle globally in order to defend the rule of law and democracy. I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the authorities who have accepted our invitation. Their presence clearly shows that the OSCE and Italy at all institutional levels are committed to combating drugs and all forms of organized crime. It is a demonstration of a firm political will, which is essential for the success of our mission. A special thank you goes to all our speakers, men and women of recognized moral stature and extraordinary expertise. Their presentations will help us better understand the scale of the problem and outline effective strategies for action. A heartfelt thank you also goes to each and every one of you, many of whom have undertaken a long journey to attend this conference. For this second edition, there are 210 participants, almost 100 parliamentarians from 42 different countries, which are represented here, including through diplomatic representatives. And this is a sign of the great attention we all pay at an international level to an increasingly urgent crisis that is the fight against drug trafficking. Over the coming days, we will embark on a journey, so to speak, that we would never have wished to undertake, a journey into the terrible world of drugs and drug addiction. Drugs claim the lives of young people, damaging their physical and mental health. And whilst taking the lives of our young people, drugs, at the same time, are the lifeblood, keeping criminal organizations alive, as well as mafias. During our visit to Vancouver in 2019, we had the opportunity to learn more and experience firsthand the devastating effects of fentanyl. This is a danger that must be understood and stopped. We must help these people. We must help our young people escape this terrible reality, a world of despair and tragedy. And this is also true for their families. New drugs pose dangers that this conference will help us better understand. We need to inform and raise awareness, especially at parliamentary level. Drug trafficking is not merely a threat to law and order. It poses a threat to the stability of our democracies and the safety of our citizens. Organized crime is a cancer that erodes the legitimate economy, corrupts institutions, and robs future generations of their future. The mafia thrives on the trafficking of illicit substances. Any narcotic substance is a commodity and a source of revenue for organized crime. Fighting drugs with determination means fighting the mafia, and fighting the mafia means fighting drugs. Italy remembers and pays tribute to those who have fallen in a bloody battle. We remember and pay tribute to judges Falcone and Borsellino, who dealt hard blows to organized crime, paying for their courage and clear-sighted determination with their lives. We remember and pay tribute to the many, many uniform who have lost their lives, such as General Della Chiesa. We are delighted that some senior representatives of the state police, the Carabinieri, and the Italian financial police are attending our proceedings. To them go our applause and our heartfelt gratitude. Our response must be firm. There can be no room for great areas or hesitation. Drug trafficking fuels a market of death that finances terrorism and destabilizes entire regions. Only a global network of lawfulness can defeat criminal networks. Exchanging best practices among parliaments and governments is furthermore a winning instrument. This commitment to human dignity and the common good will be mirrored tomorrow by a moment of profound reflection. As you will have seen from our program, we will have the privilege, and I would like to greet the representative of the Holy See, Monsignor Maximilian Grech. Thank you for being here today. As I was saying, tomorrow we will have the privilege of being received in private audience by the Holy Father, Leo XIV. Before the Pope, we shall show up with humility, respect, and a willingness to listen, united by that spirit of pragmatic simplicity which makes the OSCE so special. That is the strength of parliamentary diplomacy and dialogue between peoples, between politicians from different countries. We shall convey to the Pope our deep commitment to peace and our declaration of war against the mafias, criminal organizations, and against drugs, which afflict the world. We will also convey our hope, because in this room there are so many politicians, so many good people who deeply believe in the OSCE and who work every day to build a better future. Thank you once again for being here today. And I would like to thank you especially for your friendship. And I wish you a fruitful continuation of this meeting.
And now I will hand over to our President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, MP Pere Juan Pons San Pietro. Thank you for being here, Mr. President.
Presidente Fontana.
Mr. Fontana, the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies. Mr. Under Secretary Molteni, dear Eugenio, dear Secretary General.
As a President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE, I would like to start by condemning the massive overnight attack from the Russian Federation to Ukraine tonight. You know that we have colleagues from Ukraine that will attend this meeting, and I would like to underscore that as President of the Parliamentary Assembly, I always condemn these attacks. So, again, I would like to start with this. Proverò a parlare in italiano.
And I will try and speak Italian. Let's see if I succeed. And I would like to start by saying that I'm just back from the capital of Europe, where I took part in the summit dedicated to the return of Ukrainian children abducted by Russia in Ukraine. Russia, by doing so, violated international commitment, international law, and committed war crimes. And I would like to share this experience with you because it reflects very well the historic moment we are living, as I said earlier, with President Fontana. The fact that that summit took place in Brussels sends a very strong signal. Russia's aggression, now in its 5th year, is having a deep impact on the European project and our collective security. At the same time, though, I saw Kaja Kallas and the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Andriy Sybiha. They were together in the council building in Rue de la Loi, and this demonstrates that Europeans want a European Ukraine more than ever, and that Ukraine wishes to be part and parcel of our European family. This was reiterated by both President Zelensky and the Speaker of the Verkhovna Rada, Stefanchuk, during my visit to Kiev in October and March last. But all of this also highlights how the security landscape in the OSCE region has changed profoundly. Today, we face new geopolitical challenges that are advancing almost as fast as technological change. Ursula von der Leyen said in Davos in January that this second quarter of a century is overshadowed by tensions, uncertainty, and multiple crises, which in fact are worsening in the Levant and the Middle East, with all the consequences that this entails for the Palestinian people. Those crises at the beginning of the 21st century we thought would never reoccur in the world, but we were so wrong. And that is precisely why this assembly is all the more crucial to promote multilateralism, dialogue, and conflict prevention, as my dear friend Eugenio reminded us, especially at a time when citizens fear that they are living in a less secure world. Allow me to give you a simple example. 3 weeks ago, I was in Kazakhstan, whilst Iran and Afghanistan were already sources of significant instability in the region. Today, Iran represents an even greater concern due to its destabilizing effect, especially in a strategic region such as Central Asia, which is a vital corridor between China and Europe today. And I truly believe that our organization, as I said that, and as I reminded President Fontana of that, our OSCE region can help us in understanding new threats. Attacks on our democracies during electoral processes are a clear example of this. In elections, we see recurring elements: disinformation, cyber attacks, fake news, manipulation through artificial intelligence, as well as external interference. These are brand new threats we must learn to understand and fight against. And this is precisely why I wish to congratulate the Italian delegation and Italy on the support given to the Parliamentary Assembly. I would like to thank wholeheartedly the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate for their commitment. I would like to thank Eugenio Zoffili and the whole of the delegation. Italy has clearly understood that the new geopolitical landscape requires new responses in the fight against terrorism, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and organized crime. Italy has extensive experience in the fight against criminal organizations seeking to occupy the state's sphere of influence, such as Spain, where I come from. Just as Spain, as I said, is well acquainted with the fight against terrorism, which we have defeated together through the unity of our democratic forces. I believe this is the true aim of this conference, to understand the direction in which organized crime and drug trafficking are heading in a hyper-connected world, a world characterized, marked by high mobility. Here, this phenomena pose concrete risks and threats to the security of a region. Therefore, require a coordinated parliamentary response, which is exactly what citizens expect from us. To conclude, I would like to sincerely thank the Italian authorities for the invitation and for their steadfast commitment to the Parliamentary Assembly. And I would like to conclude by publicly call on Italy to continue to strongly support a body that today represents one of the few political and parliamentary fora that are capable of connecting countries stretching from Central Asia through China to Vancouver and California. This is an organization which, above all, works every day for the sake of democracy. Thank you very much for having me. And I would like to give the floor to the Undersecretary of State. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, Pere, for your remarks. Now, we shall now hear from a friend and a colleague, Undersecretary of State to the Ministry of the Interior, Nicola Molteni. He is also a colleague from the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. He welcomed us at the Viminale, the Ministry of the Interior, when we organized a field mission on migration and fight against trafficking in Lampedusa. And he was with us last year during our first conference on the fight against crime. Nicola Molteni, over to you.
Presidente Eugenio.
Vice President, dear Eugenio, I would also like to greet President Fontana, all authorities who are here today. This is an important opportunity. This is the opportunity to exchange views on some critical issues that are being addressed within national parliaments as well as at international level. Organized crime, especially the financial aspect of organized crime, as well as drug trafficking, are global issues that have to be tackled together with a coordinated and joint effort. The title that you chose for this conference is Stop Drugs, Fighting Drug Trafficking Together to Defend Security, Health and the Rule of Law. And it perfectly encompasses the multidisciplinary nature of this issue. In fact, it is not just about fighting against an illicit activity. This is about defending our communities, protecting our citizens' health, defending those high fundamental values that underpin the democratic spirit, that is legality and lawfulness. Drug trafficking is one of the main sources of income for organized crime. One of the panels that we will have tomorrow will focus on the follow the money approach introduced by Giovanni Falcone. The proceeds of drug trafficking know no borders. They affect the most vulnerable regions. This is a criminal, highly sophisticated system which is highly organized and can rapidly adapt to geopolitical, social and technological changes. Organized crime does not operate according to traditional models. These organizations use complex financial instruments, they exploit technology, they infiltrate the legal economy, they move along international routes which have to be closely monitored. Drug trafficking, in particular, has turned into a highly dynamic process with new substances emerging. We have mentioned fentanyl, but it is not the only one. There are alternative routes and digital channels which reach the final consumer as well. And faced with this new evolution, one thing is clear: no country can act alone. The scale of the issue requires a coordinated effort, and that's why interparliamentary cooperation is all the more important. This conference is a great occasion, a unique opportunity to reinforce dialogue among institutions, to share practices, to find common solutions. Interparliamentary cooperation is not just about lawmaking processes. And I say this as a parliamentarian, first of all. Of course, the lawmaking process is fundamental and can really make a difference in the fight against the mafia, organized crime, and drug trafficking. It also helps us create alliances, create a shared vision, and it's essential to promote a culture of legality. But contrast is not the only fundamental tool when fighting against organized crime. We should also reiterate how important prevention is. The fight against drug trafficking, also the fight against that dimension of drug trafficking that we witness in our streets, in our roads, and that erodes our social fabric. Well, this requires us to spread awareness and to support the most vulnerable part of our population. It requires us to support our young people who way too often are exposed to the risk of drug addiction. Which is, of course, closely linked to drug trafficking. Investing in health means supporting our healthcare systems, means investing in specific programs. We cannot just fight against drug trafficking and the demand for drugs. There is a diversified demand for drugs. So we should not just tackle the ways drugs are sold and produced, but we should deeply understand the reasons why there is a demand for drugs. And this is true for light drugs and for heavy drugs. All of them need to be tackled. At the same time, following the money is all the more important. Giovanni Falcone's motto, "Follow the money," is now more relevant than ever. Tracing the criminal proceeds is fundamental to reach the roots of criminal activities. This is today one of the most important tools used by our police forces. And let me express my heartfelt gratitude to all men and women in uniform. With great professionalism, they fight against organized crime. And I think we should really thank them wholeheartedly. European police, national police forces play a pivotal role with great competence, expertise, and adaptability. Fighting against money laundering, tracing financial flows is a key priority which requires expertise, technological tools. So we should really leverage technologies in this sense. And it also requires a stronger international cooperation. Another aspect to keep in mind is the relation between drug trafficking and other types of organized crime, for example, human trafficking, terrorism, and corruption. These phenomena are often intertwined and interconnected. They reinforce each other, and they require a common global integrated approach. As we all know, security does not happen in a vacuum, but it is the effect of a complex balance involving different levels and domains. And finally, before I conclude, let me underline the symbolic value of the message "Stop Droga." This is not just a buzzword, it's a collective effort. It's a shared responsibility. The challenges we have to face are demanding ones. However, they are not impossible to overcome. The results we have achieved show that cooperation, public policies can lead to actual results, and we should leverage these elements. So this is an opportunity to come together, reflect. It's also a strategic opportunity to relaunch our joint effort. We should go home after these proceedings with clear proposals, with a renewed spirit of cooperation, and with the awareness that only if we stand together we can face this threat. I therefore wish that our exchanges today and tomorrow will be valuable. They will generate new ideas and synergies that can be useful for our joint action. So to all of you, to my friend Eugenio Zoffili, whom I deeply respect, goes my heartfelt thanks for the commitment and for the attention you are paying to the future of our communities and societies. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Undersecretary, for your remarks, dear Nicola. And I would also like to thank the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. And I also wanted to inform you that at the end of this two-day conference, we will be working together on a resolution we will submit table to the annual OSCE conference that will take place in The Hague in July, precisely on the issue of organized crime and drugs trafficking. And this is something we will share with all parliamentary delegations. On this, I'll leave the floor to Roberto Montella. Mr. President Fontana, dear President Pons, Vice President Zoffili, Mr. Molteni, honorable members of Parliament. First of all, I would like to thank Vice President Zoffili for this initiative. This initiative is the result of its vision, of his commitment. Vice President Zoffili, while doing some research in the Secretariat, we realized that you are the Vice President that was elected as a landslide victory in the whole of the history of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. The conference is indeed already a big success. This hall is full of people. Rome is a very popular venue, but indeed issues that are at stake here are also hot issues. Thank you. Earlier today, we talked about the OSCE DNA, an assembly that deals with dialogue. We have exchanges with colleagues that have different opinions, but it is indeed in our DNA to have conferences, and even if we have diverging opinions. Earlier this week, we had in Rome a GSM meeting of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and that also has a goal of dispute settlement. I would like to thank the tax police, the state police and Carabinieri for being here and for their work. I would like to thank Giovanni Milillo, who will be speaking tomorrow. I would also like to thank the work carried out by the National Anti-Mafia Bureau for its cooperation with the OSCE, especially when it comes to the Balkans. We carry out a very concrete work with the National Anti-Mafia Prosecution Office. I would like to also thank the Italian delegation. The Italian delegation works in great harmony despite diverging political opinions, but when we work as a team, we are a united front, and we try and export the Italian model abroad. I would also like to thank President Pons de Pere. Since you were appointed as President of this Assembly, you have placed it back to the beating heart of political debate by refocusing on Ukraine. You reminded us that you were recently in Brussels to talk of kids that were abducted in Ukraine by Russia. We recently visited Kazakhstan, so hot issues include Asia. You mentioned Srebrenica, where we see a slogan, the shame of the international community. In other words, the failure of the international community in Srebrenica. So for those working in international organizations for 30 years now, this is a memento for us. It is a reminder that we must tap into international organizations to deliver our goals.
Over 100 members of parliament, I think 42 countries we have here represented. I am constantly amazed by your enthusiasm, by your participation, by your commitment to work in the OSCE. I know you're very busy parliamentarians back in your national parliaments, but the work that you dedicate to this assembly, the amount of commitment that you have demonstrated in the last year has record highs. I will remind it in my report to the Standing Committee in The Hague next time. At the outset, and it's been remembered also by other colleagues, we cannot not remember victims of organized crimes as we are in Italy. I think we should remember two politicians, Pier Santi Mattarella and Pio La Torre, who have been victims of organized crime, two judges, Borsellino and Falcone, and one general, General Dalla Chiesa. They are victims of mafia, but have also given us some indications of how to fight mafia. It was reminded by Sottosegretario Malteni, follow the money, that was the motto of Judge Falcone. Why we do this in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly? I think the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly has a special key to deal with the organized crime, because organized crimes is not just national. I've worked in the Balkans for many years, and I must tell you, I've worked, here we have Albanian delegation, Serbian delegation, I've worked between the fight between Albanians and Serbs in southern Serbia and Kosovo. But I must say, while there were multi-ethnic challenges between the two countries, there was great cooperation at the level of organized crime. So organized crime cooperates very well and cooperates in a multi-ethnic fashion. So the point here is that you cannot fight organized crime just with national legislation. You have to have an approach which is multilateral, international, as we do in the OSCE. And I think that this is the key that the Parliamentary Assembly has. You have the possibility to share your experiences, to share your good practices, and also come up with solutions which are a little bit more international and allow us to fight organized crime also with the tools that they have, because they have no problems in cooperating internationally. The first Rome conference that Eugenio organized fed very well into a resolution on promoting recovery on social reuse of assets confiscated from organized criminals. This was in Porto last year, and with a great principle, I think this is also a principle of the Italian fight against mafia, is that the assets that you seize from mafia should be given back to the victims of mafia and should not be left in the possession of mafia who have stolen this from victims. And in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, we approach these issues also in an integrated fashion. We have, thanks to President Pons, also appointed a special representative on combating organized crime, Zoffili, but also a special representative on fighting corruption, and also we have an ad hoc committee on fighting terrorism. So all these committees, fighting terrorism, fighting corruption, corruption and fighting organized crime, all is very well integrated in our work, and all comes to one objective, which is to have unified legislation to fight organized criminals. Under your leadership, Vice President Zoffili, also, you've created very good relationship with the UN, United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes, with the DEA, with the American states. So also the outreach that you've done in the United States to help us also create cooperation with other international organizations. And I think this is very important. When you work for international organizations, sometimes you tend to become very, like protecting your own little turf. But I think you've had the intelligence also of working with others, because the objective here is to have all the assets of the international organizations fighting one objective, organized crime, and not having, like, to say, the monopoly of that fight within an international organizations. And there are others probably who are better equipped, better financed to do that, but you've had the intelligence of putting together the work and the support that members of parliament can give to this fight. So thank you for that. Tomorrow, it's been reminded here, we will meet His Holiness Pope Leo. Thank you very much, Eugenio, for arranging that. I think the fight against drugs and organized criminals is not only a security imperative, but it's a moral and a humanitarian one. And it is about protecting the most vulnerable, the young person had the first pill, the family who is torn apart by addiction, and the neighbor destroyed by criminal violence. And I think His Holiness Pope Leo has unparalleled moral authority to these issues, and we are honored to stand alongside with him tomorrow. Honorable colleagues, this work will, as you've reminded us, feed into another resolution in the ENG. So the work that we will do today will inform and will prepare a new supplementary items on these matters. I'm very proud of the work we do at the Parliamentary Assembly, and I conclude. I would like to thank again President Pons. Under your leadership, I think we have really entered and put the Assembly at the very center of a political debate. We are stronger politically. We are also stronger financially. I see many delegations, Luxembourg one of them, who have decided to contribute higher than they use. This shows that there is an appetite for more work of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. There is an appetite for more commitment, so I also thank those delegations who have decided to increase their contributions, and this shows that you believe in the work that we do, you believe in the work that you do as representatives of parliamentary diplomacy. And as an Italian, of course, I cannot fail to conclude my statement saying that I hope that in the future, probably in the next legislature, President, there will be a possibility also in Italy to host an annual session, maybe in 2030. 2030 should be my last year in this job as a Secretary General. Maybe it would be a good way to conclude my mandate as Secretary General. So with this hope that we can all get back here maybe in 2030 or somewhere during that period of the new legislature. I thank you all, and I wish you all good work. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you so very much, Secretary General. I would like to convey to you the greetings of our Deputy Prime Minister, Salvini, who was unable to attend for previous institutional commitments. And the Undersecretary Mantovano is now in the midst of a very important meeting in our government's headquarters. So I declare this inaugural session closed, and I hope to be able to have Undersecretary Mantovano later with us for his remarks. Thank you. And now over to the family photo, which will be followed by a light lunch. Thank you.